All right, welcome to the Week 5 Forum. This week we are looking at the idea of theory and the role that theory plays in the scientific process and in contributing to the scientific method. I am a political theorist by training, so I think you can oftentimes note that what political scientists think the role of theory is and what political theorists think the role of theory is are oftentimes very different things. Really beginning with the behavioralist revolution, behavioralists like David Easton and folks like that basically said political theory exists to serve the scientific approach, to give them theories that can be operationalized and tested. Political theorists have oftentimes argued that their role is broader and more consequential, that their job is not merely supplementary, but that in fact their job is to some extent to remind science what politics is all about. That sometimes political scientists get too caught up in the minutia of measuring things and don't understand again this crucial distinction between counting things and things that count. And so as theorists, if you look, for example, at what causes revolutions. I think to me one of the more interesting books on that, and one of the more interesting theories on that is Ted Robert Gurr's book Why Men Rebel, which was written in the 1970s, and it provides a really good illustration of sort of the role that theories play. Gurr basically made the argument that violence is not an inevitable feature of human societies, but it is a frequent feature, and it can be predicted. And his argument was that deprivation of a certain sort is far more likely to provoke violence than other forms of deprivation. And he made a contrast between absolute deprivation and relative deprivation. And his basic view was with absolute deprivation, people are less likely to rebel simply because they are effectively oppressed. They're too busy just trying to stay alive. Relative deprivation occurs when you have this disjuncture, right? This separation, if you will, where their conditions might be improving, but they're not improving sufficiently rapidly to mollify and to prevent them from radicalization. And kind of a key element of this are what are the factors that contribute to radicalization. And so when you look at theory, I mean, the first thing you have to recognize, and regardless of whether you are a behavioralist or an interpretivist, we exist, and our understanding of the world around us is mediated through language. We cannot escape that linguistic umbrella, that the linguistic sea in which we swim. And we have to use language. And Wittgenstein once, famous, one of his aphorisms, whereof we cannot speak, thereof we must be silent. And we have to speak intelligently, and that means we have to have conceptual clarity. And theory, one of the more important roles, and that's one of my areas of training, is this idea of trying to achieve conceptual clarity, saying what we mean, articulating clearly what it is that we think we're talking about. The text also notes, that kind of the role that theories play in hypothesis formation, and again, how important it is to have these things, to have these beginning points, at which you're looking at what you're talking about and thinking sort of imaginatively and inductively about what is taking place. Why did people get it in their heads that flying planes into the World Trade Center was going to be politically advantageous to them? To what extent did it actually turn out that it was politically advantageous? I mean, certainly Osama bin Laden was killed, but the world was profoundly shaped by that event, which he precipitated. And again, the question then becomes, how do we react to these things? I think part of the problem that we had in looking at 9/11 was I don't think we had a clear approach other than to strike back, somewhat blindly, at the people that we thought were the bad guys. And I think we need to be clearer about what we mean by the bad guys. And I think if we had thought a little bit more carefully about it, I don't think we would have invaded and occupied, two fairly heavily populated Muslim countries for, long periods of time. It didn't ultimately work in our favor, and to some extent, it metastasized the amount of terrorism in the world. More drone strikes don't necessarily mean just more terrorists. It might actually mean, like Medusa-like more terrorists that you're producing. Every family member you kill, their children, their brothers, their fathers are more likely to become radicalized. So let's look at this chapter very carefully. Let's have a great discussion this week, and let's do our work.